Welcome to the Dr. Z Show, and very happy to have a few guests with me today. And I'm taking Tom Stapleton's role for today and asking the questions. I'm not in the hot seat today, and very happy to have two Wakefield parents, community members with me today. Mike Scollo, who is a parent of a Dolbear and a Galvin student, and Andy Bray, who's a parent of a Walton student. And I feel very fortunate to have them here to speak about their experience and the work, the very fine work they've done with the Wakefield Technology Council, our school technology council. A tremendous amount of work has been done pre my arrival in Wakefield around technology. It's a topic that's been very passionately discussed in the community. It's something that's near and dear to my heart as an educator, and it was very rewarding for me to walk in to a situation where we had a very vibrant technology council who was beginning to put together a strategic plan and direction for our schools, a blueprint for someone like me as a superintendent to really follow, and our educators to follow. And this was a group who was made up of teachers, students, community members, both who had children in the school and some that did not have children in the school. And given the emphasis that we've put on technology in the last few months, and we've asked for some resources both in our operating budget and from capital, I thought it was appropriate to have Mr. Bray and Mr. Scollo come talk about their work on the committee and really lay out some of the key points of this technology plan, the strategic plan that was developed by this committee under the leadership of Elaine Hughes, who's our outgoing technology director. So I guess I'll put out to both Mike and Andy, if you could just share a little bit about who is this tech council, who's on this, and what are their qualifications to serve on our school technology council.
Sure. It's a great group of folks, very energized, really broad background. We have representation from all of the buildings, all the school buildings in town, either parents or staff. We also, and those parents have a wide range of background in technology, from a number of leading companies. For instance, Mike works for IBM. We have the benefit of having some folks on the council that aren't parents. They don't have children in the school, but they come from the technology field, and they're lending their expertise to the council, some of whom are educators in other towns. And we've had the benefit of having some of the staff and administration from the district. So it's a pretty well-rounded group.
Absolutely, yeah, very diverse. And actually, to Andy's point earlier, what to me is really interesting is that we've got folks that don't have a vested interest per se, that don't have students in the district, but yet work in other districts that have been very helpful, or have expertise from industry, which has been extremely useful. But we've been able to examine other districts through their connections and see what they're doing in terms of technology, and it's been extremely valuable.
And what drew you, the two of you, to decide that you were going to give up? We don't pay you handsomely for this this volunteer effort, but what drew you to want to participate and engage with this group?
Well, from my experience, I'm a dad of a second grader at the Walton. So we were at Woodville for kindergarten and moved to Walton for first grade. And so it's pretty eye-opening to go from Woodville to Walton and see that, the difference in how wired those schools are, Woodville being fairly recently built and being built with projectors in each room, and just looking at where we were a year ago and some of the issues that the building, that the school was dealing with, and hearing about some of the issues that the district was dealing with. I walked right into a conversation of the PTO and how can we fund this technology, how can we get projectors in every classroom, and we took a giant leap forward last year under Dr. Murphy and under his leadership and the school committee to go ahead and take the step to put projectors in every classroom. So I felt like I'm so fortunate to come in when I did, but I've seen all the growth that we've gone through in the last year or two, and then seeing all the potential that, for where we could be. So that's why I've engaged in the Tech Council kind of through that experience at Walton and through the PTO.
So I guess for me it was to some extent evolution. I've been a very active parent supporting the school system for probably the last 5 years or so. and actually participated in the strategic planning process back with Joan Landers. This probably goes back 4 years or so ago. But anyways, I kind of took the lead in terms of facilities and technology at that point in time, and out of that came the this whole concept of a technology council. So I was one of the founding members, if you will. But also it just it was actually a pretty good way for me to take into what I do professionally on a day-to-day basis and incorporate that into how I can volunteer and help better the community. So,
and we very much appreciate both your involvement in the committee and sharing your expertise. I'd like the community to hear a little more about the plan that you guys put together, and that very soon will be featured on our website, and that was presented to the school committee a few weeks back. Can you talk a little bit about the process you went through to develop the plan, and what were the drivers in putting it together, and the final product that folks will be seeing?
Yeah. It was it was kind of a great confluence of things. I mean, you had been hired. I believe you had accepted when the council reconvened in May, or you were in the process of being hired at that point. We had an early meeting and looked at, okay, what are the current priorities? So kind of took stock again, because we've gone through some growth, and where are we? Where do we want to be heading? Where should the council focus its energies? And we pretty quickly gravitated to the idea, well, we need a plan, we need a shared vision for where we want to be going with technology. And from that we started to look at how other towns have approached this. We went out and looked at some real leaders, some districts that are real leaders in technology. We reviewed some other plans.
Yeah, not just local plans. We looked at plans from across the country, plans from California, from the Mid-Atlantic, that were rather interesting. So, just to see what other states are doing. So that was pretty interesting and eye-opening. And the site visits were actually what I found to be most helpful and interesting to see, what's the classroom experience in other districts look like. And that was, really helped shape where things go. But it was tough. There were some pretty long-winded, challenging meetings at time, especially when you get a large group of people together, and trying to get everybody to come to agreement. So
yeah, one of the great things is where we are in this point in time. We're getting ready to take another kind of giant leap forward with the Galvin coming online, with the recommendations in the budget for being one-to-one in the Galvin under the the building funding, and then recommendations to move the fourth and then third grades to one-to-one. And what does that look like? So we're in this kind of interesting period. We're on the precipice of this giant leap forward, and so it's a great time to kind of take stock. But yet, as we're reading through these other plans, like, wow, there's a huge spectrum of what's going on out there in terms of technology and its role in teaching and learning. And for us, it was just a matter of finding the right balance to kind of meet us where we're at, but then to take us the next step forward. And to that end, it's a 2-year plan, and that's a very intentional choice on the part of the council, because we expect with this new growth, there's going to become a lot of, there will be some growing pains involved in that. We don't know what we're going to look like on the other side of that, so let's take this next step and then take stock at when we're coming to the end of that 2-year window, and see where we are and re-envision where we want to head from there.
And so as you as we look at this plan, and be curious, what are some of the key recommendations from your perspective that have implications for the work that we plan to do, as you said, over the next 2 years, and that and some that really will have an impact on what students and teachers experience in classroom. What are some of the highlights from this this plan? It's one thing putting it in writing, but what are some of the things? How's that going to manifest itself over the next 2 years?
So I think one of the biggest things here is moving to one-to-one across the district. And Andy just mentioned this, but trying to get there over the next 2 years. It's very exciting from my perspective with the Galvin next year when we open the doors. And I don't know if we'll be right, come September 1st, but the plan is to have a device in every kid's hand there, which to me is a huge step in the right direction. But then, in phase 2 of this, or year 2, trying to drive that down to the elementary levels. To me, that's very exciting. So, the investment in devices, to me, is a very exciting and one of the keystones of this plan. The other key piece here is investing in educational technologists. From what I've seen, especially some of the local volunteer work I do at some of the local schools, this is a very critical role in terms of helping teachers integrate technology into the classroom. From my perspective, we need to make great investment there. There's a pretty lengthy section on professional development for teachers. Again, another big area where we need to make investment for this to work. And to me, it's very exciting. We can create, through technology here, we have the opportunity to create some very engaging learning environments, and gives us the opportunity to better differentiate instruction for all types of learners. To me, it creates some operational efficiencies for teachers and administrators. One of the other areas we're called out in the plan, and in terms of priority, it's certainly that's something out there, but we really need to take a hard look at the student information system and figure out, if where we're at today makes sense, or if it, we should move on to a different platform moving forward. But again, that's a whole nother realm where we can realize some great efficiencies and improve communication and the overall user experience for students, teachers, parents, administration, and so on.
Yeah, I couldn't stress enough, the importance of the role in the educational technologist or media specialist in helping us take this giant step forward. It's we've talked in the past about the delivery of hardware, bringing devices into the schools, bringing projectors, and that's an important step, and it's really something that, needs to become part of just the infrastructure and not something that we do as an aside. It needs to be really part of just how we think of running the schools. It's just technology is just like the ceiling, it's just part of the making the wheels roll forward. But it's one thing to deliver that hardware and that technology, hardware and software, but it's another thing to empower the teachers to be able to use it in the classroom. We're blessed with such incredible educators in Wakefield, and we recognize that they're really, on quite a spectrum in terms of their capabilities to use technology. We want to, the vision, I think, from the plan is to really meet them where they're at and help them move along that continuum to be able to effectively use, integrate technology into their lesson plans, into their curriculum, and the library media specialists will play a huge role in making that possible.
So if you, and this gets to sort of our larger vision, as you as a committee think about, project out 2 to 3 years from now, the plan is been hopefully followed through. What should it look like? What should technology use look like in our classrooms across the system?
It should be seamless. It shouldn't be, today's technology day, time for the kids to go down the hall to the technology lab and have their 45-minute session. It should be a part of their everyday learning and just, almost, ideally it just is. And it's not, something that you see as a standalone or that you talk about, but it's just part of how they do, it's part of their workflow. It's part of how they're being evaluated. It's part of how the teachers are evaluating them. It's part of, and so it has that role in teaching and learning. It also has that role in evaluation. It can play a key role in, how we plan for interventions for students and how we, provide differentiated learning, in an integrated classroom. There's so many exciting, opportunities as we bring more technology to bear and help the students and teachers be able to, make the most of it. Mike mentioned some of the workflow elements and, the efficiencies that can come from that. There's small efficiencies in everyday transactions, and how do we capitalize on those, and what do we do with that time that we just gained? We have more time, for teachers to focus on planning and working with students. There's just so much good that can come from those small efficiencies that we eke out of our everyday workflow.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to potentially see the elimination of paper and hopefully, a digital text and alleviate lower back trouble for our little ones. As I watch my little 5th grader march off to school every day with her giant oversized backpack and another crazy zipper binder and all this paper just bursting out of it. I'm really excited to see digital workflow and digital text take off. Occasionally, she'll have some homework, especially over the weekend or something, and she'll forget a book at school or something. But, here's a great way to alleviate that. But yeah, I think that's where we'll be, hopefully, in a couple of years, where we've really streamlined the day-to-day activity and even ease a lot of that administrative pain, and things will just be seamless. The technology and curriculum will be seen as one.
And so, I mean, along the lines of what we've been talking about is when you, a lot of the questions that I often get is about the impact that technology will have on student learning. That ultimately, as an academic institution, outcomes for students is paramount, right? We want to see, whether you look at that test scores, whether you look at grades, whether you look at preparation for college and meeting grade level standards and above. And many people question I've gotten the question, is there an impact? What kind of impact that will technology have on learning, and is it the right kind of investment for us to be making in terms of accelerating that kind of student learning?
I would say that, it's absolutely the right kind of investment to make, on par with the overall investment that we make in education. Mm-hmm. It's a small percentage, yet it's an important role. In terms of how do we know we're doing good or doing better, we did spend some time as a council looking at the evaluative tools that are out there for looking at, things like, proficiency with technology. The reality is that, there's not a lot of great uniform evaluative tools to use for measuring that. Either at the state level or at the national level. So we will have to fashion our own types of metrics to see how we're doing, and try to tease out what role technology is playing in that. It was a little bit of a disappointment, certainly for me personally, after having dug around for it for a bit. There's a 2008 standard for the state for technology literacy. Mm-hmm. That they know the Department of Ed, I believe, is well aware it should be updated to modern day technology. But even given that standard, there's no off-the-shelf tools to apply that. It's left to district by district to develop, mm-hmm. Some type of rubric or some type of evaluation mechanism to see how students are doing against that standard. So mm-hmm. I think that's, beyond Wakefield, that's a need, a big need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from my perspective, it's more about creating an engaging learning environment, mm-hmm. and technology is such a great way and tool to do this, and almost create a unique delivery platform. And from the research I've done, indicates that greater engaging learning environments generally translate to greater academic achievement. So, and also, it goes back to that theme I keep drawing upon, but differentiated learning, especially in the elementary levels, where you've got kids all over the spectrum, and I think kids that are lagging behind, you can offer some instruction specific to their needs, and those gifted learners, it gives you the ability to let them run on their own, and go from there. And also, to me, it gives us the opportunity to deliver even virtual type content, mm-hmm. Where, in the past we've had to make some cuts, especially like foreign language comes to mind in the middle school. And, through virtual classroom type environments, we can offer some additional program for kids that wanted to, say, pursue different languages that we don't offer locally. And then, I think there's some really interesting concepts too, like around flipped classroom, and I'm not sure we're there yet, but to me that's really interesting, where we can have kids do more work in the classroom and consume video lectures from their teacher at home at night. So to me that's really interesting, and perhaps we can get there within a couple of years. So.
Just on two things on engagement. I can't agree more on the importance of the role of technology and engagement. I mean, it's not everything, but the notion that you can keep a student more engaged or engaged for longer through the use of technology shouldn't be shrugged at. And then enhanced learning through technology, I think, is huge. You know, the examples that Mike gave, just ways to incorporate the technology into everyday lessons to, you know, really enhance the learning experience and the role that that plays in learning itself and knowledge acquisition.
Even correspond with kids in other districts, you know, whether it's domestic or international, is a huge opportunity, and an opportunity that doesn't I guess now we physically have the capability, but it's certainly limited at this point. But we're definitely moving in the right direction, especially since we turned Wi-Fi on in all buildings in September, which was a huge leap forward.
And as you think about, the two of you are obviously very successful in your professional careers. You're in the world of work and career. As you think about the skill set that you see in terms of college graduates coming out, working in your places of employment, and in the world of work, what's the skill set in this that we should be thinking about, given your experience specifically the fields of technology that would better prepare our students? So we talk about the Common Core and the Common Core's push on preparation for college, but also career. What are some of the skills that using technology would serve to really give our students as they progress through a K-12 system?
To me, one of the greatest things is communication. And that comes in all forms now. You know, whether it be through standard written communication, verbal, you know, oral type communication, or even social media. So a lot of things coming back to digital citizenship's probably a big hot button right now. But how to use social media responsibly. It's interesting. You know, I have to every year sign off on some business conduct guidelines, and there's certain rules I need to follow with respect to social media and how I use it. I'm a I guess marginal Twitter user, but again, I have to proclaim that you know, everything I do on Twitter is my own. It doesn't reflect the corporate entity, but certain levels of respect. But then, in terms of math and science, the ability to, you know, use standard industry tools or to manipulate data and that type of thing go a long way. But to me, probably the biggest thing is communication and be able to conduct oneself professionally and that type of thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I'd maybe add two more, and that's, you know, the ability to adapt. You know, and I see, you know, the wired generation, or the, you know, the children today, they're inherently, you know, through their use of technology, I think that plays a role in how adaptable they are to the changing environment in front of them. And then also, and maybe this relates back to the media specialists again, but, you know, the ability to acquire information, evaluate it, assimilate it, and turn that into knowledge, and the role in which technology plays in that process. So.
Great. And what do you see the role of this technology council is moving forward? So we have this plan. It's been shared. It will be shared more over the next few months. And then, so where do you see the council going in its work?
Well, it's certainly an interesting question. You know, I think in the short term, I really like to see us continue to monitor the plan and make sure that we follow through and execute upon this plan. But additionally, as we evaluate it, continue to determine where we need to go. Additionally, you know, I think another thing we've casually talked about, but is look into a fundraising component to this, where, you know, perhaps we have some element that can focus on these technology tools that kind of go above and beyond, that kind of fall outside the scope of what the district can reasonably fund. So I think the district will have, you know, its core components, you know, the core classroom requirements, you know, projector, computing devices for students, et cetera. But perhaps they're the nice-to-have items, such as like robots or 3D printers, to name a few things, but those nice-to-haves that the school just can't reach to fund. So perhaps, you know, the Technology Council could move in that direction. And there's a lot of grants and partnerships out there that we could tap into. To me, that would be really interesting to really take things the next step forward.
Yeah, I can't agree more on the notion of a district-wide kind of innovation fund for technology. And, And I think there's been some talk about what that might look like and how it could work, but the idea that we now have a plan, that sets the roadmap for the next couple of years.
Right.
We have a lot of the infrastructure type stuff coming online. That frees up a lot of creative energy to be, having that base to stand on, frees up a lot of creative energy for where can we really go with technology in an innovative way, and the notion that teachers could, pilot technologies and there would be a fund to help with that. And that, and something we haven't really talked about much today, but that we're starting from a place of much better parity across the district than we had a few years ago. So now that we're all kind of on the same page, we're not playing catch up anymore. Let's see what kinds of interesting things we can do. So the innovation fund is definitely a big priority for me. I mean, one of the other things we've talked about with the plan, and there's an element of it in the plan, is the role of technology when the district looks at its curriculum. And and I know that's something that's in the early planning stages, but as that moves forward, I personally would love to see a role for the council in helping with the thinking around that. That the leadership would look to the council for direction, or not direction, I'm sorry, for input, and use us as a resource for how we can help in thinking through that process. I'm not sure, we're not actually the people that would be well positioned or have the right background to actually sit in some kind of curriculum review cycle, but to the extent we could be a resource for those that are doing that hard work, I think I'd love to see that happen.
Well, great. It's really hard to believe that we're coming to the end of the show. Time does fly when you're having a thoughtful conversation. I just want to end by really thanking the two of you for taking time to be on this show. I know it falls in the middle of your days, but most of all for your involvement in this committee. It does, again, as I said, provide a roadmap and a blueprint for us to follow. It's aggressive but realistic at the same time, and I think now the challenge is how we engage others around it. I know there's an attempt to share with the different school communities, but what's exciting for me as a superintendent is to be part of a conversation that's already started with a very, very much a like-minded vision for the role of technology, not as a luxury, but as a must, as part of our regular teaching and learning efforts that all children should have access to, as we try to better prepare our students for the world, the world of higher education and then the workforce. It has to be an integral part of what we do. And as Andy, you were saying, this is it's nice that we're now getting to be at a foundational level, which will allow us to be much more innovative and to build from here. To be a lot more creative and innovative about how we use technology to begin making our students the most competitive that they can be within Massachusetts and the United States. So,
well, if I could just
Sure.
quickly add, I would say, all the energy we mentioned behind the development of this plan and all the time in only was possible because we knew that this was something that you were passionate about, that was going to be part of your leadership, and so that was the real energy and galvanizing force behind the technology plan, so thank you.
I want to thank our guests, and I look forward to the next episode of Sit Down with Dr. Reich. Thank you for joining us for today's session.